This special edition of FTB Cover 5 is brought to you by Gold Hen Bloody Mary Mix. Sweet with a little bit of heat. Order your bottle at goldhenllc.com today.
For as long as there is spring football at Penn State, we here at For the Bloggy will kick it off with a long-winded and recklessly speculative FTB Cover 5 video. That's our promise to you. Meaning in this sport's rapidly shape-shifting climate, this is likely the last one we're ever going to do. We had a good run. For our possible swan song, we've identified a handful of 2nd-year Nittany Lions poised to make grander impacts as standout contributors this season. A purposely vague descriptor to cover our backsides if this list ages laughably 8 months from now.
Number 5, Anthony Speca.
This year, the U in linebacker U stands for up for grabs, which explains why someone like Anthony Speca, a seldom-used garbage-time exclusive spot filler in 2024, is worthy of inclusion on this list. A vintage Western Pennsylvania tackle-to-tackle run stuffer who undoubtedly would have been cast in a supporting role on Craig T. Nelson's Ampipe squad if he were born 40 years earlier, Speca could very well cut the line and occupy the Nittany Lions' alarming second-level vacancy alongside Tony Rojas. Not because he's the most talented linebacker left, nor possesses the highest upside, nor enters the spring as the most seasoned, but simply because Speca might be the safest pick. Unlike linebacker peers such as Keon Wiley and Tamir Robinson, Speca's red flags can be partially excused because of the odd circumstances involved with his college admission. For whatever reason, Football Factory Pittsburgh Central Catholic doesn't permit early graduations for student athletes, meaning Speca was a quote-unquote traditional summer enrollee at Penn State who missed out on the physical and mental development benefits of winter workouts and spring practice. And on tape, it showed. At a listed 225 pounds, Speca repeatedly got sucked into the blubber abyss when impeded on blitzes, lacking the strength and technical acumen to counter roadblocks. With a full offseason in Penn State's transformational strength and conditioning program, though, that should change in year 2. Additionally, Speca occasionally spaced out on coverage responsibilities when the offense shifted or motioned pre-snap. Freshman stuff. That too should change in year 2. For Jim Knowles' sake, what hopefully doesn't change is Speca's Mensa football IQ and teach tape tackling technique. An old school see what you hit, wrap with your arms, and drive through the target defender. Speca was the only Penn State linebacker who played more than 50 snaps in 2024 without a missed tackle, according to PFF. Speca's comprehension of play design and concept recognition provide the extra step needed to beat pullers to the point of attack, thus negating his strength deficiencies. Unlike many young linebackers, Speca showed impressive restraint staying gap sound and refusing to color outside the lines of his run fit, allowing those around him to freelance and flash.
Number 4, Cooper Cousins.
Viewed in a vacuum, free of tainted bias stemming from unrealistic expectations, Cooper Cousins' college football orientation should have been celebrated. 172 total snaps, the lion's share split between left and right guard, appearances in all 16 games, including high-leverage, high-stakes moments in must-win contests, a sprinkling of eyebrow-raising run blocks that hint at more mouth-watering maulings in the near future, and 0 sacks surrendered as a pass protector. All of it as a true freshman. And while that's all well and good, the problem is, as fans, we were promised more, which isn't fair, but also isn't our fault. In several preseason media availabilities last year, James Franklin couldn't keep Cousins' name out of his mouth, in a good way, fueling speculation that the 5-star might vulture snaps away from 5th-year captain Nick Dawkins at center. Then, in mid-September, offensive line coach Phil Trautwein compared Cousins to the infamous Pouncey twins from Florida, a tandem that played 2 decades in the league and reached 13 Pro Bowls collectively. So yeah, when you put it that way, the fact that Cousins isn't a surefire starter for the departed Sal Wormley as we enter the spring is a bit of a bummer. Without much time to bake in the developmental oven, Cousins was noticeably more comfortable pushing forward than pedaling backwards. While Cousins lacked the knockback strength to consistently move defensive tackles 3 or 4 years his elder off the line of scrimmage, he did excel as a gap scheme puller and second-level climber, although his technique upon arrival could use some further polishing. As a pass protector, Cousins was surprisingly raw for a prospect garnering this type of fanfare, and will need to overhaul several aspects in his approach if he hopes to not split reps with upperclassman J.B. Nelson at right guard this season.
Number 3, Dejuan Lane.
Actually, non-union voiceover guy who refused to re-record for us, that's pronounced Dejuan Lane. Dejuan Lane. Good effort though, and hey, don't worry about it. Because if there's one off-the-radar Penn State defender poised to emerge as a household name in Jim Knowles' defensive system, it's the incredibly raw but talent-laden Lane. The built-in-a-lab prototype of a modern safety, 6'2", yoked 210 pounds, and enough speed to place in multiple events at the Maryland State track and field finals as a 4-star prospect in high school, Lane saw defensive snaps in 3/4 of the Nittany Lions contests last season, the most of any true freshman on that side of the ball. Though Lane's skill set at this time is heavily scheme-dependent, he'll fit in perfectly as a classic center fielder in Knowles' 3-safety system, unburdening Zakee Wheatley of that responsibility in one-high looks. Thanks to his lateral range, anticipation, general instincts, and ball skills, Lane forced incompletions on 33% of targets thrown his way, the best ratio posted by a Penn State defensive back since Joey Porter Jr. in 2022. Despite an abbreviated workload, Lane's 3 pass breakups placed top 5 for Penn State safeties in a single season this decade. Now, let's pump the brakes a tad and remind you that Lane's positional versatility could be limited unless he takes a substantial step forward as a tackler. The calm, confident aura that just oozes from Lane's pores as a ball tracker gets totally washed away when he's tasked with bringing down ball carriers. Hesitance, just unsure, atrocious pursuit angles, and a lot of flat-out whiffs. Lane's missed tackle rate in 2024 was 50%, which is obviously completely unacceptable. It should be noted, though, that the majority of those olays occurred in September and October, and that by the end of the year, Lane was a competent-ish tackler in open space.
Number 2, Corey Smith.
Is including a running back this high on the list a bit of a reach? Yes. Did we do this as an excuse to shoehorn Corey Smith highlights into this video because they're awesome? Also, yes. But considering Nick and the Fat Man are both on pace to be the most used Penn State running backs in program history, are we bat crap loony predicting Smith to siphon snaps from the elder lawn boys this season as a fun-time gadget back in Kotelnicki's caffeinated kaleidoscope offense? Probably, but hear us out. Unless you're going to pile more on the already full plates of Singleton and Allen, approximately 70 designed carries from the funky Probula and Warren Wildcat packages have to go somewhere. So why not Smith, an instinctive, mature runner possessing attributes that are complementary, not redundant, with what Penn State's all Big Ten backs already bring to the table? Unlike Singleton, Smith can throttle up and down and swerve side to side on a single carry, displaying the patience needed for blocks to fully materialize and the lateral bounce to switch lanes without decelerating. Our favorite example of this occurred in the fourth quarter versus Purdue, when Smith pressed the properly fitted D-gap before exiting stage right at the last second. Oh, and if you're curious, that's all Big Ten safety Dylan Thieneman left in the dust, grasping at air. Unlike Katron, Smith possesses the second-level acceleration to turn 10-yard gains into 20-yard gains. As to whether Smith can be a weapon in the passing game, well, your guess is as good as ours, since this dead-to-rights reception was his only grab last year.
Number 1, Luke Reynolds.
If you're tempted to explore the cornucopia of Penn State podcasts released this month discussing how to replace Tyler Warren's production, let us save you a few hours. You can't. It's impossible. Find solace, though, in knowing that Penn State tight ends coach Ty Howell still has the second-best ace up his sleeve behind honking your car horn in a traffic jam, that being sophomore tight end Luke Reynolds. Despite manning a side stage far from the bright light marquee of the Mackey Award winner, Reynolds still managed to compile the best statistical year one debut from a Penn State tight end since Pat Fryermuth. In the spirit of full transparency, we should divulge that it didn't take much for Reynolds to accomplish that. Just a sliver over 100 receiving yards on 9 receptions. But within those fleeting pass-catching cameos, Reynolds did provide a peek at his advanced, technically refined toolkit. For a guy forced to play out of position at quarterback until his senior year of high school, Reynolds is a smooth, confident, natural hands catcher, which initially sounds like the football compliment equivalent of, oh, she has a great personality, until you recall it took Warren 3 seasons to eliminate the drops. At 6'5" and a La Bamba burrito shy of 250 pounds, Reynolds sports a gangly in a good way frame. Surprisingly, Reynolds was a post-catch pain in the ass for defenders, fighting through contact and always falling forward. PFF only credited Reynolds with 1 broken tackle in 2024, even though we counted 2 on the single play, so numbers do lie. Obviously, Reynolds provides QBs a generous, forgiving target thanks to his elongated catch radius. But what's rare is that elite stretch doesn't negate his fluidity of movement or 5-star athleticism in any way. Situated in a variety of alignments in Andy Kotelnicki's offense, Reynolds already displays impeccable timing and suddenness as a route runner, whether he's the primary target or a pick-setting pawn like on this game-sealing TD to Warren in the Fiesta Bowl. Finally, this might be blasphemous, but we fully expect Reynolds to develop into a better downfield separator and vertical threat than Warren ever was.